So, as is typical, well, actually, it's kind of in reverse this time. All footage that'll come after a certain point in the video, closer towards the end, I recorded yesterday. And the rest, first half, will be recorded today. So, just to state, first off though, before I get into the main topic with this video, I mentioned this in my latest video on Pornhub, titled Feminism and Misandry Are Not the Same Thing. Same goes for masculinism and misogyny. But I mentioned at the beginning there that I went to, well, as I will have said in the last video here on YouTube as well, I went to the ER to hopefully get this lump in my neck checked out. And then I was referred to a clinic right beside it to be seen by just a general practitioner. And they decided not to refer me to a radiologist to get it looked at because, rather dismissively, which I was unhappy about, and they were, well, more narcissistic and overconfident, but they said if it was any sort of oncological mass, it's benign, I'm sure of it, with how small it is and how long ago you said it began, and it hasn't seemed to you that it's been noticeable that it's been getting any bigger, which I haven't been able to tell if it is. It's still about the same size right now, but instead they did a swab for streptococcal, or strep throat, and that apparently came back positive. And I was surprised by that. And they told me that most likely the lump there is caused by the infection. Some amount of swelling is, well, closer, I guess, to the lymph nodes, but not quite. But most likely, I guess, well, I guess it could be a gland behind here. I don't know what one that could be swollen from it. So they prescribed me an antibiotic that I've been taking for 3 days now, called amoxi. No, what? Hold on a second. Oh, yeah, I was right. Amoxi. I've never heard of it before this kind of antibiotic, but yeah, I got it at the pharmacy at the clinic. I had to pay for it. Same with the doctor's appointments, because here's a little, well, actually I'll get into that after. So anyway, paid for my things, and I've been taking that antibiotic. And here's the strange thing, I haven't noticed really any improvements or worsening of anything in relation to symptoms, because I had no symptoms. At least none that I was aware of. The most I'd been experiencing is my typical psychosomatic illness symptoms in relation to pseudoneurological issues, like dysphagia, anomic aphasia, word-finding issues, cognitive disrupt in neuromisattribution, often as well. It can be attributed to heat waves that we've been having at this point in the summer, on and off. And maybe some dyspraxia and maybe spatial awareness issues or depth perception issues. But either way, those have all been typical for me on some basis or another for the latter half of my life at this point right now. So about a month ago, when I noticed this lump starting to form, I didn't think it would be strep because I wasn't experiencing any sort of symptoms of strep throat, such as severe sore throat, redness, at least as far as I could tell, in the back end of my throat or along my palate. No red spots, no fever, no nothing in that regard. Or maybe some amount of nasal congestion, which I've had before when having strep. But yeah, didn't experience any of that. So I've been asymptomatic. If this lump has just been caused by swelling of either muscle tissue or most likely I'd say a gland, well, then I've been asymptomatic for a whole month and been living with strep throat. So that's interesting. But well, I'm at the very least glad I got it checked out to some degree. I wish the doctor would have been more thorough and less dismissive. But regardless, another reason they said that they didn't want to refer me to radiology was because, well, I would, being out of my initial province, have to pay for it. Oh yeah, and that's what I was going to get to. So, for any of you screaming that the Canadian healthcare system is fantastic, it's incredible, we have free healthcare, and unlike the American system where you have to pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for single visits. Yeah, one, I've complained in previous videos about the healthcare system and how backlogged it is, how they don't prioritize anything, how all of modern medicine is pretty much just a quick fix, slight resolvement of an issue, or some amount of beneficial treatment only in minimalistic dosages, though, as far as I'm concerned, as we know that most problems are caused by psychological and as well as that societal issues around us relating to physiological problems. And well, so it's terrible, yes, in that regard, but on top of that, in relation to the Canadian healthcare system, with the whole free healthcare thing that's paid back through taxes, so even in your home province or territory, not free. Yeah, that's only true if you're staying in your province or territory. Yeah, you're covered by your provincial, or for the territories it might be covered through federal expenses or a federal insurance provider, I guess. You're covered by that in your home administrative region. And even then, those don't cover everything in relation to medications or treatments that are provided that could be, to some degree, a bit more helpful for a patient suffering from a physiological or psychological illness. But if you go outside of your home province / territory, you're going to pay for it if you go to the hospital for any sort of visit that isn't related to the ER. I used to think when I learned this that it was also ER visits, but apparently, at least, at the very least I know for 3 provinces it's not. Quebec, New Brunswick, and Ontario, I believe. But it might be nationwide as well. But for ER visits, at least for those 3 provinces, from what I've researched, you don't, and from my experience here in Quebec, you don't have to pay for emergency room visits. But if you're referred to any other division of a hospital, or like say general practitioner at a clinic, whether a private clinic or I guess operated through, well, all medical personnel are in operation to some degree with provincial and municipal, the health ministry and regulations for that branch of government. But in relation to one specifically run through cities, or I guess if in a more rural area in relation to counties, well, you will have to pay for it if you don't have traveler's insurance, if you don't take some amount of, get an insurance provider for traveler's insurance domestically within your own country. Which, in relation to as well, that's something that a lot of other countries that have not, I'm not going to call it free healthcare, not immediately paid healthcare is a better wording for it. Most other ones don't do that. There are those that do. I believe Australia is one. Then there's Russia does that as well. And well, Ukraine's healthcare isn't free, so. Anyway. Oh wait, no, Russia's healthcare is only free in certain oblasts and republics, I believe. Well, either way. And there's another one. Well, I'm forgetting it right now. But either way, yeah, be aware of that if you're traveling anywhere in Canada. I'm not saying you should take out insurance. I don't think you should. It's gonna screw you over anyway, as insurance companies' sole purpose, for the most part, is for those who maliciously are trying to amalgamate profit. But anyway, so off that topic, it's my last day, hopefully, in the St. Leonard district. So I'm gonna showcase certain areas of it. Moreover, ones that I haven't covered yet from the last video and last night. And I'm gonna try 2 different things this time. I'm gonna try and break up my topic for this, main topic for this video. I'm gonna break it up across the actual length of the video, and then as well as recording while I'm riding on Camden here, I'm going to try and actually hold my phone in my hand whilst recording, because I've been having many issues with trying to get footage from within the sleeve of my backpack. So, we'll see how that goes. Okay, I'm gonna get down a ways on this road here called Rue Maison and showcase it during the day, because I filmed it at night last time when I took, well, a nightly ride down there. So, yeah, let's do that. So I'm a ways down now on Rue Maison, and I'll showcase where I am specifically in a few minutes. So, to kick off what I want to discuss in this video, well, relates to the political commentary community, specifically that of the internet political commentary community. Now, I'm sure if you're even so much as just a light user of most online platforms, you've had your fair share of running into some form of discourse within the realms of, well, socio-political dilemmas and discussions of such. Now, I somewhat mentioned in my first part of exploring Montreal how I feel that so many of those amongst the commentary community very clearly are histrionic and care how other people within said communities perceive them to an encroaching extent, as well as how narcissistic personality disorder has, they both have a complete hold on individuals within said realms of discourse. And I'll elaborate more on that here. But I want to relate it to specifically what I see personally with how from all sides of the political spectrum, not just said psychological disorders, how they are presented, but morally, how individuals try to portray the opposing side of their arguments. And to start with, it's very sad to see, for me, in relation to those on the leftist side of ideology, how, those who claim to be leftist or those of far leftist ideals. Because, let me reiterate, I don't consider myself a far leftist. I consider myself more so a rising leftist with ideals leaning into far left, but not going as far. No pun intended. It's sad to see, let's relate it first to those who are genuine, more performative. It's sad to see how much of a cognitive dissonance so many have in relation to their ethical values. On really just an everyday basis, and more so how they present their image, let's say, online. There are a slew of far leftist commentators who have, I will say, in relation to far leftism, the ideological ideals that I agree with, that I myself, to some degree, engage with, or at least have, obviously, an influence to my political affiliations. Most often, they have genuinely fantastic points to make, and fantastic opinions for specific things in regards to issues that plague the world and societies across it. Whether, even to some degree, whether they realize it or not, they have genuinely well thought out ideas for how these disparities present themselves, and as well as some amount, again, in relation to far left ideals, some amount of genuinely, I think, beneficial methods of counteraction to some degree. But yet, at the same time, there's a mass self-conflict of interest, I guess that I would say, with how they orient their belief system. Because most often, as far as I'm concerned, in relation to far left, it gets to an oppressive point of alienation with ideals towards those on the far right, or really just any part of the rightist sector of the political spectrum. This highly oppressive and dehumanizing portrayal of individuals and collective groups that affiliate with those ideologies. Now, obviously, I don't at all agree with any form of right-wing ideals. They are also oppressive and highly toxic, highly destructive to human functionality. But, that being said, I also think that far leftism, as well as much of the, well, I'll get into this at a later point in the video as I'm trying to break it up, the passivity of moderate leftism to some degree as well falling leftist rhetoric. And it's sad to see that, because so often, as far as I'm concerned, if you examine that ontologically, as well as phenomenologically, you're just condoning the same thing. I've said this before, you're just condoning the same thing that your oppressor is condoning. You condone the authoritarian subjugation and mass isolating and unjustifiably cruelly belittling those who have already abhorrent morals, as far as I'm concerned. And that's very, very sad to see from commentators who I know are very highly intelligent in many regards. But they're making these statements of, yeah, I guess you could call it ideological, well, technically, paradox of existence. Everyone who claims that this is better in morality, which I believe is true in moral realism, is a superior form of morals, which, yeah, that's true. But this, what would be a better word for it? This humanistic superiority, I guess, might be a better word to describe it, or better wording, better name. Now, let's go to those on the far right. Those of far right discourse have massive superiority complexes, are highly narcissistic, highly egotistical, sociopathic, just the same as the far left in that regard. And concretely in their ideals want the separation as an end goal, unlike those of the leftist discourse. Reason I'm making the distinction between the two in this regard, for those who genuinely hold the beliefs on the far left, unlike the leftist sector of the political phi/political fe, those of rightist ideology want the separation, to some degree or another, of people groups, and want this further prioritization of one over the other, consciously. They want the separation of it. Now, again, those who have subtle right-wing ideals, who maybe, well, it's philo-psychologically integrated into the subconscious, don't fully realize how they present said unconscious biases consciously in their daily lives, though I believe they can become aware of that. They don't Well, there are those more, I'd say, towards falling rightist, center rightist, and maybe moderate rightist to some degree, but more so falling rightist to center rightist, that don't fully realize said ethical values that they hold. But specifically with the far right, they will make severe claims and wants, and have severe wants of oppressive degradation of provably non-problematic cultural traditions of other groups, and the complete supremacy of both beneficial but more so problematic, detrimental cultural traditions, ideologic cultural traditions as well, for their demographics. And in that, they see those of leftists, or even in relation to centrist discourse, as being weak, lesser of humans, and being unworthy of life, and being unworthy of having a place within a societal setting, and feel that they should basically either be killed, eradicated, imprisoned, re-educated, or basically made to be what is considered by their ideologies to be a superior demographics, and slaves. And now, I mentioned again in part 1 of this series that I do believe there is such a thing, I guess, technically as right-wing intellectuals, just as there's left-wing intellectuals. More so on the basis, though, of, obviously in relation to epistemology and philosophy, that of critical thought in what is, in how someone examines the environment around them and what they come to in terms of conclusions. So I believe that someone can come to rightist ideals and act in such philosophically in their daily livelihoods because of critical thought and examination, but, well, they've landed at, as far as I'm concerned, their observations were very clearly wrong, and they've landed at piss-poor conclusions. Doesn't make their ideals any less depraved, but nonetheless, I guess you could count that as being a rightist intellectual. Now, in relation to, though, how those who are both genuine in terms of leftist discourse in their beliefs, and those who are performative, who are actually just covert right-wingers. And to those on the far right that completely wants the destruction of various members of the human race. Well, or the enslavement of those members and obedience. Well, there's a trend that I've noticed and relates to the unempathic, unsympathetic cycle of conflict. And specifically with how each side, and this includes extremist centrism, will portray the other in discourse, in just conversation, or especially in news media, journalism, or again, specifically in relation to internet commentary, journalism, or just general commentary overall. So, this is the thing. When the far right will do something, members of the far left on the internet will point at them, they'll point them out, they'll laugh at them, as I believe is justified, but they will do it in such a way that is not out of care or compassion for those with the rightist ideals or whatever movements they're trying to instigate. It'll be, and they'll make commentary in a way that is to portray them as basically monsters, as monstrous, as evil, as the destroyer of all that is holy. Basically, in a sense, to try and portray it as if they are something beyond human, portraying them in things that are all not true. As far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as evil, there's no such thing as good in reality. And I used to use the word monstrous even to describe those who are of very abhorrent, provably abhorrent morality. But I don't anymore, at least I try to never use it anymore, because as far as I'm concerned, it's too mystified of a word. And so, in doing such, those who are making the commentary and pointing out, rightfully again so, how deplorable those making these claims are, it'll come from a place of psychopathic lack of empathy and complete bashful humiliation to the point of basically as if, I'll talk about this later, but basically as if they don't just don't want the person to exist, even though they do exist and they are a real breathing human being who has very clearly, as far as I'm concerned, a highly damaged emotional state which has disrupted their cognition. And they'll do this to not just in relation to those who are performative, who do to some degree believe in what they're saying but have more leaning histrionic traits, personality-wise. They will posture, and they will either knowingly or unknowingly posture, a manipulation tactic of seeming more confident and assured than they actually are in their statements, and will be so dismissive and passive-aggressive towards those of the opposing side to try and subtly rally support and kind of get the viewers or those who are subscribers to their content on whatever platform to agree with them. Basically serving as some form of propaganda. And in relation to those who are right-wing, who are performatively leftist, who don't genuinely hold left ideals, they will build themselves up as these very charismatic, very intriguing or quirky figures on the internet. And they will keep up a false persona of being highly analytical and very introspective philosophically, and they may make genuinely correct points. They might, and in this regard, may actually have what I would consider to be genuine and beneficial stances and examinations of something. The problem is, they don't care. They don't care whether it's beneficial or not. They care about what they get out of it. This fame, attention, this praise, and thus coming some form of power with it. And don't worry, I am going to name names like later in the video. I will name specific people on the internet who are very clearly posturers. Some have been in internet drama discourse recently. And some of those people, for a while, I was fans of, or I had been interested and agreed with their values, or what they so-called claimed were their values before. But that'll be later. Now, going over to those on the internet discourse of the right wing. Those of the internet who have very clearly far rightist to rising rightist viewpoints, they will see this performative, or in relation to genuine far leftism, this authoritarian subjugation of values from them. They will see that, and then they will try to come off as having examined, and maybe they have, how these people operate. And they will point it out as for how destructive it is. And they will showcase how hypocritical all these individuals' stances are, which is true. And they'll be correct in that. They will be correct, as far as I'm concerned, these right-wing commentators. Here's the catch. They'll have such a lack of self-awareness to not realize that they themselves are doing the same thing with their ideals. Their ideals are literally what most of, in relation to the performative aspect of those who claim to be leftists, those are right-wing ideals that they hold, the same ones that these commentators hold. And also, they'll try to portray it as if what they'll try to do is portray the entirety of leftism, or the ideas of leftist values, inherently as being these oppressive, totalitarian, and destructive social forces, which is not true at all if they actually knew anything about genuine leftism. Because they want to portray it as if the right-wing superioritization and inferioritization of their philosophies is the only true way that humanity can function, or that it's proof, or the actions of these extremists on the far left, too, as well as in relation to centrist discourse, as if they're these dangerous insanetics who are a threat to civilization as we know it. Which, in relation to if genuine leftist discourse was ever to prevail in any sort of large-scale amount in a societal structure, which, as far as I'm concerned, it hasn't for millennia, then yes, it would be the end of civilization as societies across the globe know it, which would be a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But not in the essence of how they try to portray it, is this idea of they want to basically destroy the cultural spirit of things that have been so sacred to us, or to humanity, basically. So, yeah, it's just like my diagram of the unempathic/unsympathetic cycle of conflict. The oppressor will subjugate the oppressed. They will portray it as if the oppressed, who then, because of the suppression, develops sociopathic and dismissive ideals, anti-socialization, which disrupts natural, human, innate pro-socializing wants and desires in relation to interactive loneliness. This will cause them to have an authoritarian counteraction to the oppressor's ideals, and thus will instigate, it will integrate the oh. I guess this place is well, I guess it's open now. Okay, I'll wrap this up and go inside. So they will portray it as if the oppressed is this danger to the actual proper functioning of humanity, and then because of that oppression, the oppressed will then portray the oppressor as these detrimental, beyond human threats to genuinely beneficial human interactions, and need to be quelled and fought against at all costs, with no regard to their humanity either. And thus, then, as far as I'm concerned, the oppressed becomes the oppressor, and then the oppressor becomes the oppressed, and then it continues around with the oppressed again becoming the oppressor, so on and so forth, if it's not broken. So that's what I see in most online internet discourse, especially in regards to politics. Now, I'll talk about the rest of what I want to talk about later. Right now, I'm going to go inside here, as you might be wondering where I actually am. Well, en route, my son, I've been just drying off some of my belongings, mainly my shoes. What the hell? Where? Don't tell me. Oh, good. No, they weren't stolen. Thought for a second just the padding from the inner soles of my boots, which I took out to dry in the sun, were gone. And I was gonna be like, are you serious? Why would you steal old, weathered, ripping padding for shoes? They're not even that great for my boots, but anyway. So, let me flip the camera. Well, you might recognize this from some of the footage I captured riding down this road at night. Very much Western European cathedral, which is marvelous in terms of architecture. It's very big. It's bigger than the Ukrainian Orthodox Church down a ways, and what appeared to maybe be the Hungarian Orthodox Church, just closer to Little Maghreb. But yeah, it's very, very intricate, I'll say, but also clearly, well, someone or some people have opposing views to it, as expressed, which many people are ignorant to this religion as well. Satanism, which I won't discuss here for time, but well, maybe in a different video. Okay, let me go inside. Maybe I'll actually be able to find a place to charge my portable charger. 1, 2, 3, 4. How much gentrification can you afford? We know you're stealing.
Ben oui, parce que là, du coup,
Alors, vous savez, là, c'est... OK, mon petit était un peu à partir de l'âge.
Okay, I really wanted to showcase these style housing units because they're very clearly inspired by Southern European architecture, more specifically, I guess, could be more Southwestern European. Because I've gone up and down, and most of them are mainly, they seem, in this area at least, here in Rosemont, seem to be predominantly located along this road and one adjacent to it just behind me. But they're apartment buildings, small, low to the ground apartments that not only have so it appears to be one bedroom apartments or maybe even studio apartments, but not only do they have them mainly situated more protruding from this side of the building just towards the front of it, there's also clearly apartments pushed to the back end of the actual building unit. So if I go down some back roads in the area, probably up a ways down, I might find that the buildings are actually lengthier than they appear to be on first glance in terms of their extended width. From, like, if you were looking at a 3D model of the building without it being connected jointly between all these, it would be longer going that way. But it's very neat. You can tell as well the heavy Southern European influence, because like more of the spiral staircases going up to the second levels here. But it's a design that's not really seen all that often in North America, especially in more urban sprawls with more modern Canadian to American, and in terms of elitist architectural design, that they often are appealed to go to, they're appealed by Scottish architecture and Japanese architecture. Nothing wrong with any of them for the most part in terms of just architectural design, structuring for some of them maybe, but either way, these are very neat, especially because of the fact that this can house clearly a lot of people in one building section. Because we got 1, 2, 3, oh god, focus, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At least 8 apartments in one building. Even if they're not terribly huge, the size of a studio or one bedroom, still, at the very least, if you have maybe a family of 3 or 4, you could fit probably, again, I don't know the inside, I don't know the inside space of each of these units, but you could fit at least 4 people probably in each, if it was of an average size of most studio or one bedroom. But again, just, it's very neat, very interesting. Ow, my eye. That didn't feel very nice. Oh, and that emotionally doesn't feel very nice. That hurts my feelings. right? Oh, there's two of them. Oh, nice. Didn't notice that before. Ça va? So this is my first time being more towards the northern end of St. Leonard, but still, right now this is more north central area of the district. But as you might be able to tell, this area and Rosemont as well, for a large portion of it, is predominantly Hispanic and Latino populated, ethnically and ethnoculturally as well, in terms of businesses and fashion attire that is worn, and well, all things of the sort. But also, just notice this: it appears to be a more Latin American Christian church. I have not seen one of these in a while, at least the design. There was one similar, I don't think it was specifically Hispanic cultural, but in Laval, in Pont-Vieux, there's one that was of somewhat similar design, but not quite. It's very, very neat. There is differentiation as well in artwork for a lot of Central American to South American churches, and as well as mainly Catholic churches. But in terms of the architecture of the actual church itself, very interesting in terms of the slant roofing, with it then extending to what would be more so, I guess, on more European style churches, where the steeple would be and the cross, but designed more so. The cross is for most Latin American places for Christian worship are... I can stop Camden here, thank you. Oh, you can't even see it. Okay, you know what? Let me get it onto the actual... Let me get onto the other side of the street and get a better view of it. Okay, that's better. So this design right here with the cross actually being worked into the exterior structuring of the church. I've noticed that in a lot of churches that culturally have Latin American influence to them, and predominantly Latin American attendance. But this one also, obviously, there's a cross outside of it that's been posted up. There wasn't even one on this side, so it would have been... Oh, it's open. Okay, is today a specific day? Because it's Friday, and it's the 14th of July. I don't know if there's specific events happening today where all of them just happen to be open to the public. Because on other Fridays, I've gone to churches just to see inside them. They've all been closed for the most part. But, well... let's see.
Bendito sea el nombre de Jesús. Bendita sea su preciosísima sangre. Bendito sea Jesús en el santísimo sacramento del altar. Bendito sea el Espíritu Santo Paráclito. Bendita sea la excelsa Madre de Dios, María Santísima. Bendita sea su santa e inmaculada concepción. Bendita sea su gloriosa asunción. Bendito sea el nombre de María, Virgen y Madre. Bendito sea San José, su castísimo esposo. Bendito sea Dios en sus ángeles y en sus santos. Señor, danos sacerdotes. Señor, danos muchos sacerdotes. Señor, danos muchos santos sacerdotes.
Levanta tus manos y alaba. los invitamos a ponerse de pie para dar inicio a la Santa Eucaristía.
Ofrecemos esta Eucaristía pidiendo al Señor por el eterno descanso de Modesto Emilio Palacios al cumplir 22 meses de su encuentro con el Señor. Oramos también por el eterno descanso de las almas del purgatorio. Unamos a estas intenciones las que traemos en nuestro corazón y que presentamos a Dios. En el nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo. Que la gracia, la misericordia y la paz de parte de Jesucristo el Señor estén siempre con ustedes. Queridos hermanos, queridas hermanas, puestos en la presencia de Dios por humildad, reconozcamos los pecadores para hacernos dignos de celebrar esta liturgia. Digamos con humildad, yo confieso ante Dios Todopoderoso y ante ustedes, hermanos, que he pecado ante palabra, obra y omisión, con mi culpa,
Well, that's a very interesting cluster of mushrooms. I have never seen that many fungi of that size grouped together like that before in my life. That is very cool. Okay, Camden. Let's see if all of our practice has paid off. Okay. Oh, okay. Well done. I'm proud of you. Oh, almost. You're almost able to make the turn. Straight up here. Aha, there you go. Pretty well. Pretty well. Okay, so this name has been popping up a lot in this area. Jardin. And whoever they are, company or organization, they seem to own up all of Maisonneuve Park, certain buildings, apartment complexes along Rosemont Boulevard one of the roads going in the opposite direction to it that intersects with it, and also a very much high-end, wealthy, to ultra-rich community on the opposite edge of the park. And if you'll recall back to my Gatineau videos, in the ultra-rich areas on the other side of the Promendas district, to the north, north of the downtown area of the city, well, in the downtown area of Gatineau, but in the northern end of it, there was Jardin Communautaire development, a development company that owned up pretty well all the apartment buildings in the elitist, condo-riddled neighborhood, Lisa Blue, that I visited in the night. So, given that it's clearly, well, when I was there, clearly seemed to be a Quebec-based company, perhaps this is the same development enterprise. Yeah, they own up, if I could let go of Camden well enough for a sec. Okay, maybe. They own up that building over there. Whoever this Jardin group is. But I'll have to research that and find out. But I would not be surprised. Okay, so close to the opposite end of Maisonneuve Park, and this building here in particular, I'll mention in the clips towards the end of the video, but surprisingly, it has relation to Hydro-Quebec. And no, it's not just a power grid field of theirs. No, it's something else, but, well, I've yet to do further research on it, considering that the area is closed. Well, not really able to ask anyone, I don't think. So, I'll have to do research from afar. But just keep that in mind for later. Always an unpleasant sight to see. Yet more performative activism. God, Camden. Still. Well, I can definitely say that church ceremony was beautiful. Well, minus the, from my agnostic atheistic stances, minus the, spiritually untruthfulness of it. But just in terms of the practice and what they were honoring, clearly, in terms of, well, cultural traditions associated to various portions of Hispanic culture, well, it was very nice. There was clearly a sense of community there. And as for where I am right now, the skate park that's right outside the Olympic Stadium, which you will see later on in the footage. So, what I'm going to talk about for this portion of the video in relation to what I was discussing earlier. So now let's talk about well, in terms of internet political discourse, some people who I think are very big offenders to some degree or another of this this dehumanization of each side of the spectrum. So, let's start with someone who, a while back, about a month and a half ago, had a lot of controversy drummed up about them, and who I've talked about in one video in particular, along with someone else I'll mention here on my channel, when I was still in Ottawa, before all this happened. Illuminati. Blair Zone, I believe is their last name. So, if you don't know who they are, they're a commentator who mainly covers highly corrupt corporate entities and or religious, well, yeah, and or religious organizations, given the content that when they talk about companies that function under the guise of religious solidarity. But recent news broke that well, I'm not going to divulge into it too much here, because apparently I'm getting a notification that my phone's storage is low. Interesting, given the amount of footage that I've captured so far. But anyway, basically, they were caught basically creating false rumors, spreading false rumors, or amplifying a situation with another commentator named The Click. The Click? Is that? They're a Swedish YouTuber. Well, they were found out to they created a false account and then started posing as basically an online troll and spouting very vicious and destructive accusations about them, which they proved were not true. And well, it landed them getting a lot of exposed videos done about them. I don't like that word in terms of internet discourse. It's one of those things where it's gone to a point where it's just so used up for unnecessary reasons in specific scenarios to where it's diluted its meaning. At least I feel. But basically, so many different commentary channels were jumping on the topic to discuss how manipulative they had been, and how highly unempathetic Illuminati clearly is to do something such as that to another commentator online. But in this regard, so many of these other commentary channels, which I watched a few of their videos, some of them not all the way through, but enough to get the gist of how they were handling the situation and sharing their opinions on it. But it's very clear that though they had genuine points to make and were right, they were right about, as far as I'm concerned, morally, Illuminati's actions. They themselves went on this very clear attempt to monsterify Blair, which is, as far as I'm concerned, not justifiable. Now, some might be asking, well, what do you mean? How did they monsterify Zion? Or, not Zion. Zon. Blair. How did they monsterify Blair? Well, one, as is common, which I'm just going to say, this is for pretty well all the commentary YouTubers that I will be speaking about here. The thumbnails. People really have to stop with this fucking, like, I don't want to do it because I'm worried that YouTube is going to auto-generate it as the thumbnail, but these, like, fucking red arrow, a screenshot of some scandalous text message that they sent or comment they made, and then said accused online personality's face looking like, or with red tears in their eyes, and the title saying like liar caught, or so-and-so caught being a fraud, or committing atrocious act. This has gone too far. Something else. People have to stop with that. That is the most over sensationalizing thing possible. That's like sensationalism to the max. So that's one. The thumbnails, like, and Illuminati got it the worst, I think. Like, look at the thumbnails of half of the videos commenting on what they did. It's very clearly trying to portray them as, even though I do believe morally they are an abhorrent person, but trying to portray them as something beyond human, portray them as evil. They're trying to portray them as like this divine destroyer, which is disgusting and completely immature. So, and other than that, what the videos talked about in relation, in terms of the tone that most of these commentary channels, the runners of them, had towards their actions was, this is terrible, true, and my God, how could they do this? They're a scummy person. They deserve to be run off the internet. They basically are just this horrible monster that has defamed this other YouTuber and various others, and they're an incredibly horrendous person. I'm trying to, how could I emulate their energy? Like, this is just sickeningly evil, and basically, like, yeah, Blair should just go away from society forever. Like, that's the whole attitude that comes off towards all of the commentary made. I'm sorry, I've been riding around all day, and I'm a bit exhausted, but I think you get what I mean. If you want, go watch any of those videos for yourself. Basically just portraying them as this creature of the night. And on Blair's part, I commented on the fact that they themselves have dehumanized and contradicted themselves unnecessarily in a manufactured contradicting way towards those who have committed atrocities. Basically, as well, putting this very unsympathetic, having this unsympathetic stance towards, well, those involved with the companies that they would comment on and organizations. And would also, anyone who is involved with their actions, affiliated to them, no matter what in relation to how their psychological state was, because clearly no one in the political commentary community on the internet can actually tell what genuine psychological issues looks like. No one would completely dismiss and ignore any of the reasoning behind why someone would be involved with these things. It'd just be like, nope, these people need to basically suffer greatly for it. They should be cast down and lose their positions, which in terms of jobs, yes, I think they should. I want the abolishment of all free market enterprises anyway. But, oh, you get what I mean. Portraying them, like, dehumanizing those who are also sociopathic. As clearly, Blair is histrionic and narcissistic to some degree, but very much, as far as I'm concerned, a sociopath. She very clearly is. And, well, it's a mess. So, there's that. There's another one who's gone to some issues. Oh, well, here's one recently. Colleen Ballinger. Now, I'm sure at this current point in time, with the internet drama being as ramped up as it is, people will know who I'm talking about. Now, I didn't know much about her at all until I saw a video by Madison Brown, which was a very well done video overall, and it's very informative. And well, after going into some research on her, I think I got my answer as to who she was, and of course I know what is absolutely in maybe like a year or two, maybe 5 years, is going to be a Gen Z classic, The Toxic Gossip Train. So, anyway. Well, learning about her and what she did, well, it was very... One, I can't say it's surprising, but it's, well, disheartening, obviously. So, who is Colleen Ballinger? Colleen Ballinger is a YouTuber who specialized in doing sketch comedy, I believe, as well as maybe some musical work on YouTube, but also did frequent live shows with, well, fan interactions at various cons. So, what did she do? Well, she disappeared from the internet, or at the very least YouTube, for about, I believe, 4 years or so, because rumors were starting to flare up that she was engaging in, as far as I'm concerned, very much sexually encroaching, inappropriate behavior with her fans, and fans that were of younger age than her. So, and her ex-boyfriend had come forward about manipulative tactics she had used on him, and while they were in a relationship, and how incredibly domineering and just all around authoritative and controlling she was in their social dynamic. And then now she's come back years later and she made... Everyone's calling it an apology video. I don't even want to call it what's considered an apology video, which most often is not an apology, any genuine form at least. I don't even want to call it that because she quite literally said in the video, singing in the video, that she wasn't going to do that. She wasn't going to apologize or admit that she was wrong, even though she claimed that she took accountability for her actions. Anyway, so she came out with this song just claiming that all the accusations against her were false and that everyone was basically cyberbullying her into silence. But in regards to the proof against her, well, there's a lot. Screenshots detailing and messages from, I believe, just chat rooms on various other social medias of her engaging in what could be considered almost, just in terms of verbal communication, hebephilic or amphibophilic action. And, well, as far as I'm concerned, that's morally destructive and socially destructive. Now, I've already talked about how, okay, I've already talked about my stance towards things such as pedophilia, amphibophilia, and hebephilia. They are destructive and highly detrimental sexualities that I think should be self-repressed. I don't think that can be controlled in a legal sense. But I think we have seen how highly destructive they are. So, that's what, obviously, I take issue with. And I saw a lot of people commenting on the fact that, though, that she was trauma dumping information about issues psychologically that she was having, and in terms of just trauma she dealt with in her past towards her young fans, which people were saying, oh, would be too intense for them, would be scarring given their age. No, I'm not even going to comment in any regards in support of that. That's subtle ageism as far as I'm concerned, and it's a destructive viewpoint. No, there is nothing wrong with sharing traumatic incidents and discussing things with children if you know them well enough and aren't using them to just solely, basically using them as a venting machine, which is what I take issue with, because clearly, so I don't take issue with the fact that she was relaying this information to these teenagers, and, well, younger teenagers, I guess, and somewhat older children. I take issue with the fact that she very clearly, from at least what I saw of messages that she had sent to them that were available online, she very clearly was using them as just a means of solely venting frustration with no care towards any of her fans' input to what she was saying, at least as far as I could tell from what I saw. So I take issue with that. So all in all, she's very clearly a highly manipulative, maybe even Machiavellian individual. She's clearly, if not a psychopath, clearly has leaning psychopathic traits. Very clearly is depressed. So there's that. and it's all affected her ethical decisions. Now, in this regard, once again, the commentary community on the internet is destroying her for this, which, in terms of how she acted, is warranted. Destroyed, not a good word. Obviously, slandering her is, as far as I'm concerned, morally warranted. However, it's obviously gone to the point of dehumanization. Dehumanization. Oh, that was a bout of word issues there. But anyway, it's got to the point of dehumanization. So there are people claiming that she deserves to be imprisoned, that she deserves to be banned from the internet, and just, well, yeah, it's a lot of the same as Illuminati in this regard. Now, just to state as well, I don't know, obviously, I don't know if Colleen Ballinger is sexually an febophile or hebophile. I don't know if she genuinely has a sexual attraction towards people of those age ranges, or if she didn't care and got a sexual thrill from doing so, and she just didn't care about the age ranges and the fact that they were her fans. I don't know. And obviously, in terms of the live performances, what she did to various fans was incredibly encroaching, incredibly pervasive, as those who have been to her shows have shared their experience. And it's very clearly sexual misconduct, as far as I'm concerned, and it's highly traumatizing for those who experienced it from her, which obviously is morally deplorable. But as far as I'm concerned, it's just as morally deplorable the way that she's being treated as... Okay, in relation to who I saw mainly commenting on topic, Madison Brown. She mentioned at the end of her video that she genuinely thinks she's mentally ill because she doesn't comprehend what she did wrong. She feels that she genuinely does not understand how socially destructive and inappropriate this was. Okay. Yes, she is psychologically ill, clearly, mentally and personality-wise, as far as I'm concerned. This idea, however, clearly is coming from a place, at least it seemed like on Madison's part, and I'm not trying to slander Madison Brown in any way. She's a fantastic commentator. She's a genuinely great researcher and does fantastic, she makes fantastic content, and fantastic singer as well. But in this regard, obviously there are takes that I don't agree with from her. There's this idea that psychological illness looks a certain way to the political commentary community. And it's like, no, it's like psychology is over here and then everything else is over here, but it's kind of connected somewhat. No, it's all intertwined. And people don't actually realize what psychological illness actually, what it looks like. Most of you have it, as far as I'm concerned, and it disrupts your morality. You very clearly, anyone who is behaving in the way to dehumanize these people, you're psychologically ill, very clearly. You're just as sociopathic and egotistical and dismissive as those who committed the offenses, as far as I'm concerned. It's provable just by your actions. I don't understand. No. Of course, I understand why, but it's still... I really want to know what, like, these people think psychoanalysis actually looks like. Like... Anyway. So, there's that whole situation. What's another? Because it seems like I'm running out of time. Gotta figure out what's going on with that. So, here's someone who I used to follow. Big Joel / Little Joel. So, I've already commented on some of Joel's things before. In previous videos, in one video in particular, I think I might have loosely mentioned him here and there before, but in my Are You Still Not Just Doing the Same Thing video. And as far as I'm concerned, okay, he's another political commentator who analyzes a lot of different mediums. He comes from, I guess, a more postmodernist outlook. And fair to say as well, moral relativist outlook. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to go over this quick. You can all look up these people for yourselves. I've come to realize he is a posture. He is a very clear posturing manipulator. Very clearly. So, not only does he contradict himself in a lot of his videos, clearly, I'd say, to some degree intentionally, given the fact, I can point to videos such as him saying, well, when he commented on Alunda Baton of the School of Life, how he doesn't think his analysis of socialism as an ecopolitical system was fair, and that just because this so-called reality we live in, well, this destructive free market capitalist system that has a control on the global world is prevalent in that most people operate in it to survive, he didn't think it was fair to just say, well, because everyone else, basically because this is how everyone operates, it should be, or that, well, he related to an analysis of cupcakes, but anyway, that it's not fair to criticize something like this just because it's seen typically as being practical to operate in it. But then he made a video much later on his Little Joel channel talking about Greta Thunberg and Andrew Tate, and how there was comments on Twitter between the two, and how people were trying to create this deeper meaning, I guess, to what Greta Thunberg tweeted in relation to what she just said, small dick energy for something he said. And he basically said, well, no, she just meant that she just was trying to make fun of him. Now, could we open up a conversation about how men with smaller penises are belittled in this way socially, or it's seen as emasculating? Sure, but live in the real world, everyone. Stop trying to pretend like this is something more than it is, which I commented on, saying in the video I made, saying that, yeah, that's contradicting. That's contradicting to what you said. And as well as that, he also mentioned in a video where he was commenting, yeah, it was also Alunda Baton, I believe, or Jordan Peterson, one of the two, I can't fully recall, where he basically admitted that he only really, well, he enjoys the attention of his videos, so attention seeking to some degree, And it's very clear, and also I can tell this by the fact that he's also defended rich socialists, or those who claim to be socialistic or communistic, or follow in Marxist, or even, I guess, to some degree, Marxist-Leninist ideals. And I think that's just hypocritical in general. Like, this idea as if you amalgamating mass profit gain is not contributing to the system at hand. And it's very much anti-capitalist. It's not, it's performative socialism. And he commented on that, and he was defending individuals who do such things. And I noticed, okay, running out of time here, so I'm just going to go over this quick. What I notice very clearly is that he does this thing, and Slavoj Žižek, who I still need to make a video on him and Jordan Peterson, how they're just the same fucking person, just they're both right-wing, but Žižek pretends to be left-wing, and Peterson is right-wing, but, well. Anyway, how he does the same thing of carefully choosing his wording, I'll say. He does this thing where he'll very clearly try to find the most analytical sounding words to come off as very charming and charismatic, which is typical of many egocentrists and those who are highly manipulative personality-wise, to kind of seem as this highly intellectual and observant person philosophically. In reality, it's just a facade. And what really struck me was, okay, this will be the main point for Big Joel. Where I said, okay, enough, I can tell that he's a posturer, is when he made a short on his little Joel channel about why he hates on things so much, which I didn't even think he did to a large extent in terms of mass criticism. But he made a video because I think there was some sort of commenter somewhere on some platform, I don't know, I can't keep track of it, said, why do these internet influencers who make commentary hate on things so much, or why do they spew negativity so much instead of positivity? Now, that right there is a toxic ideal in and of itself. This kind of subtle condonement of what in psychology would be called toxic positivity. So, in instances where negativity is very much warranted. So, he made a video on that. And I thought it was going to be the comment on that fact, that very clearly there is things that are destructive, that you should not just condone, you should not just be complacent with, that are highly detrimental to your well-being and others. This calls for negative criticism and judgment, or opinionative takes on said things that aren't necessarily appealing, that aren't enlightening, they aren't, well, no, they could be enlightening for knowledge, that aren't positive, that aren't praising, they're not condoning it in all disregard. I thought that's what the video was going to be about, and at first it started off with Joel just making a joke, and I laughed, and I thought that was funny, because, like, he said, I just like being a big, meanie, sucky pants, and I like being a downer and things of the sort. And then he said, in all seriousness, and went on to explain, and I thought that's when the point was going to be coming that I just talked about. But no. Instead, in all seriousness, he made the point that I think hate is just a much more powerful perspective to come from. I think it's a much more intriguing argument stance for those interested in a commentary or a dialogue. I think hate drives this sort of like force behind it to intrigue the viewer or intrigue those in a discourse to be engaged with it. I think hatred and being critical of these topics is more drawing to people, because people are genuinely drawn to something that's enthralling or something. And by that point I was like, okay, enough. You're a manipulator. Like, this is posturing galore. Your excuse for being negative is because it's enticing to an audience. I'll sum up the video he made right there. That's the sum up of that video. It's enticing to an audience to just market yourself to them in an argument. What a point, Joel. Like, that's just the decoded version of his video in 10 seconds. Like, he spins his words as he does to make it seem like it's this very passionate and very, this almost, I guess you could call it esoteric, this very alluring thing to have aggression towards something and be upset, which in terms of caring about something, yes, it is, if you genuinely are upset at something emotionally, not for the purposes of drawing in viewers. If you had any frivolous bit of care, you would have not made that point. What a load of bullshit. Okay, so that's another one with Big Joel. So the last point I'll make here is with someone towards the right to some degree, or it comes from, I guess, from more of a moderate centrist to falling centrist point of view, Joey B. Tunes. I've talked about him in the same video I made about Illuminati, and also I briefly mentioned him in the same video I did for Big Joel. So he has commentary that I genuinely do agree with at many points, talking about the very clear mass spread of attention-seeking personality disorder, this social isolation that has pervaded the world because of the misuse and unnecessary updating to cellular devices and just digital technologies. Basically, these mass means of distraction to alienate yourself from other people around you. And he basically talks about the ridiculousness of how so many people present themselves socially and how they do these very overdramatic and very performative actions to seem tolerable, or to be in an attempt to be accepted by those in their interpersonal lives or societally, just on social media. So I think most would agree, at least coming from my stance, that yeah, that is widespread. But here's the thing. So often when he comments on things, it comes from this very, well, sarcastically aggressive, but passive-aggressive, dismissive standpoint, where he has this very much vocal apathy towards just the whole of modern culture, at the very least modern American culture, to a point where he will praise very clear right-wing ideals, like very much degradation of women, and also very much transphobia. He's very clearly transphobic. And he will also make points that are very overconfident, very narcissistic, and all around just dismiss the genuine reason for why this is going. Like, he'll think the problem is the fact that social media exists, or that different gender identities are in existence and have been for many centuries. He'll think this. Or he'll praise this, he'll come from this idea just of like, get a job, this capitalistic ideal of just get a job, commit to working, suck up any complaints you have about a oppressive corporation, for workers to horrible conditions and siphoning of a trade currency away from them for survival resources. Which even hypocritically, he will comment on companies' actions in performative activism. He will, and mass celebrities who are very clearly have histrionic personality disorder, and it disrupts their morality. So there's that. And it's very, 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 in relation to his narcissism, it's a mass lack of self-awareness, where he'll comment on very obvious narcissists in society, and histrionics, egotists, but you can't see how he's really overconfident and certain with half the things he discusses, even though the causality of why these people behave in this way is because of the oppressive ideals that he shares with these societal factors. So, because of years of this trauma that is built up from the oppression. So anyway, I'll stop that there, and then I'm going to try and figure out this issue with the recording. See what that's about, and then hopefully keep going, talking. Now, I'm going to try, because I did this last night, to go out of this borough and into Vieux-Villers, which is where I was last night, but the recording stopped, as you'll see, where I had driven down to. Oh, and I should also mention, because I should actually give context for the footage you're about to see. So yesterday, it was a massive thunderstorm. There was a tornado that touched down close to Montréal, Quebec. And my God, I got drenched. And I was on my way to a food bank here in the St. Leonard district to try and get, well, some food just to tide me over for the next, hopefully, week or so. So I don't have to spend as much. And, well, then I ended up coming here to the tower, to this area. But, well, that's the context for what happened there, as you'll see. So, all my things got soaked, and I had to let them dry out this morning. And they're for the most part dry. Oh my God! Speak of the devil. If I can invert or flip the camera. Can you see it? It's gonna do it again. Maybe. I zoom in a ways. Come on. Oh. Okay. I was doing it just a second ago. I'm gonna show it. Okay. Well, there was lightning over there, just beyond the horizon. That would be over the city of Longueuil, or just outside of it, I think. But anyway, so yesterday was a hellstorm, quite literally. But hey, I got my items and it went smoothly enough. So you'll see that. Okay, I'm gonna try and figure out this issue and then try and head down there and actually get footage this time of the area. Okay, I don't have a lot of time, so I'm just gonna say the last bit of what I wanted to in relation to the topic whilst driving through this ultra-rich neighborhood, which, again, pretty sure I'm right about the fact that this whole area, property-wise, is privatized, and the housing units were built and constructed by that company Cité Jardin, because the area is quite literally called Cité Jardin Communautaire. But anyway, last thing I want to discuss in relation to, I guess, what could be considered more of a centrist mentality is a whole nother problem within the realms of political discourse on the internet, that being of apoliticalness or anti-politicalness. So, there are those who consider themselves against the whole of politics, and so much so that they basically just disassociate from it entirely and try to hold no opinion, so-called hold no opinion on issues regarding such things. Well, newsflash, you can't be apolitical. It's quite literally impossible. This is the same, as far as I'm concerned, as you cannot be amoral or moralless as a human being. Politics is a relation to affiliated ideologies and philosophies and the social discourse of how people function in a civilization. You quite literally can't escape that. So let's say you you identify as being apolitical, and you hold the opinion that, I don't think people should preach their religious beliefs. Oh, Camden, shut up. Preach it in public. Well, that quite literally is sociopolitics, sociocultural issues. You're engaging and sharing your moral values on what you believe is a proper way to act in a scenario where someone is being spiritually open. Or, say, if you think the government should hand out welfare checks just on mandate and a certain amount for someone below a certain level of income in a capitalist / fascist economic system, well, that's economic politics for you. So, yeah, can't get out of that. Or, say, you feel that that there should be no monarchies. You don't believe in the rule of kings and queens or sultans or clan chiefs or representatives, technically in relation to monarchical rule. And you think that only those of a nationality or a people group can and should be these nationally recognized representatives or something of the sort. Well, there you go. Governmental politics. Can't escape it at all. And as far as I'm concerned, it's also very unethical of you to hold a stance of so-called being apolitical, or trying to be, given the fact of, well, what I'm showcasing to you right now, as much as I guess you can see, given the darkened environment. But you get the point. So I'm going to try and edit this video the best I can, and then get a move on. Onward to the Onsic Carterville district of Montreal. So, see you then, and enjoy the next bit of footage.